Clay, what are we to make at this point where Voyager frequently just sends off people in shuttles all by themselves for seemingly no reason when they're nowhere near home, nowhere to go, nothing to do? I mean, in this episode in particular, Initiations, why did Chakotay have to be so isolated from everybody else? Couldn't he do this in his room? Is there some reason he had to be so far away?
Well, clearly he could just do it from his room because he chooses to do that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, at the end.
But I think
learns his lesson.
I think the answer is that just he wants to get away from everybody on the ship. Well, I don't really blame him. You're stuck on that ship with 150 other people. There's only so many places you can go. May as well come up with an excuse to get off the ship and go onto a shuttlecraft for a little bit.
I don't think this is the first time that they've had someone just off fucking around in a shuttle where the Voyager can't see them or make contact with them or something. It's an interesting decision.
Yeah, it is. I was surprised. I was surprised when he said to Nog there that the Voyager was 2 light years away.
Yeah.
So they just dropped him off and just left.
Yeah.
Like considerably left.
No, they had to go to his point of last known destination or something, right? When they said that he's missing because they just can't contact. It's just I don't know. I mean, it sort of makes sense if you're in Federation space and there's things flying around and maybe the shuttle won't get lost, but there's never really a good reason why he has to be so far away from the ship. It doesn't make any sense. But this is Initiations, so let's initiate the conversations.
You never wanted to just go for a drive or something? Like when I was living at home still after college, I would just at 10:30 at night just go for a drive to the nearest Wendy's, which was 25 minutes away, just because I wanted to get out of the house.
Well, gas was 75 cents a gallon back then.
That's true. True. That back in the good old days,
you could afford it.
You didn't need to pay for it with a Fabergé egg every time you filled up your tank.
No, we just we drove around with 5 people in that Toyota Camry. That was it. Just 3 people in the back, someone in the front, and the one person who could drive, and was the regular driver.
I had a friend who, when he was at WPI, said that he used to, on a whim, drive to White Castle in New York, which is like a 3.5 hour. Yes, which is like a 3.5 hour drive from actually probably more because it's Worcester. Yeah, it's probably about 4 hours from there.
Yeah, that's a long. There's no White Castle in Connecticut, or is he just I want the New York?
No, I
White
guess
Castle.
he just wanted to drive to New York to get White Castle. I guess.
Oh, that sounds.
I could see
awful.
one from my. I could see a White Castle from my dorm room, and I never went in there, so I don't know why he wanted to drive 4 hours to go to White Castle.
Yeah, that's not even a fun drive. That's a bad drive.
No, yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I guess he likes Harold and Kumar because they did more for White Castle than anything else, I think, at this point. But
probably, yeah.
Initiations. It's the second episode of the second season, Star Trek Voyager. It came out on September 4th, 1995. I was just turning 12. It is written by Kenneth Biller, directed by Weinrich Colby, in universe date is 49005.3, which is 2372. In Initiations, Chakotay becomes caught up in a young Kazon's rite of passage. Erotic. Yeah, as you said, Aaron with 1A, Eisenberg, is in this one. Nog, Friendly Neighborhood Nog, has returned.
Is he the only person who spells it that way?
I think so, yeah. I just think of the Key and Peele Aaron sketch. Is all I think of with the name Aaron now. Aaron.
He's missing out on being first in line in whatever goes by alphabetical first names.
Yeah, it must be that's maybe that's like an original biblical spelling or something.
Oh, maybe
it might be, or like maybe the Old Testament or something. I don't know it well enough to say. But let's see, Initiations. Well, I thought this episode was boring as hell. we can start with that. I thought this was remarkably boring.
Yeah,
it wasn't. It wasn't an awful failure of an episode, but I was so bored. I couldn't believe how boring it was.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with you on that. Yep. It was fine.
It's borderline fine. Like, we are being kind by saying it's fine. It's fine in the way that it made sense, sort of.
Yeah.
For 95% of it, and it works as a story, but it's certainly not worth telling.
It's fine, but there's also like some questionable plot contrivances.
Yeah.
Or decisions that the characters make for the sake of the plot that I found myself going like, well, this is taking me right out of this because this is just asinine.
Oh,
like,
maybe I wasn't even paying attention. Yeah, what's the prime example? The only crazy plot stuff that maybe I'm just missing it. I don't understand any of the joining forces at the end and then trapping each other.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to pull one over on the Federation.
Okay.
For some reason. No, the one that stood out to me is that they've got the Kazon have Chakotay captured, and they've got Nog there, and they're like, you will be front row for the execution. And then you find out that it's Chakotay has to kill Nog for honor, whatever, some shit, because he failed. And so then they hand their prisoner a loaded weapon. How did they expect this to go? Did they? And it's not even like the Deer Hunter where it's a revolver, so you put one bullet in it, and it's you're in a room full of people, you got one bullet. They hand him a phaser.
Yeah,
he could have shot everybody in that room.
Just do a line, just strafe, and just knock everyone down.
Like how they hand their prisoner a powered up phaser, and of course he tries to escape. What did they expect was going to happen?
I was actually more interested in the escape sequence there. Which, because they don't have transporters, takes a great leap of faith that they're able to get to that shuttle and get the hell out.
Yes. My favorite was when they cut to them in the ship, and Chakotay goes, "It's okay, he's not dead, he's just stunned." I was like, "Oh, they shot someone."
I think he was talking about the first guy.
Off screen.
He was talking about the first guy. I think the guy, like the head honcho that he shoots when they escape that room. I think he shoots somebody.
Does he shoot him? I don't know if he shoots anybody when they escape the room.
Oh, really? I think you do. This is
maybe they
this
do.
Is what I can tell both of us like borderline didn't pay attention to this episode. I certainly didn't. It was
the other thing was at the end when Chakotay is like, Nog has finished telling him how the honor and the naming ritual stuff works, and Chakotay's got it figured out. I need you to kill me, but don't worry about it, because as long as I'm back on the ship within 2 minutes of brain death, they can bring me back to life.
They don't ultimately go through there, but that's the
but
plan
still,
B,
that was the best he could come up with, is let the kid murder me and hope that they get me back to sickbay in time for my brain not to die.
Yep. Yeah, it's.
I mean, it worked. It worked for Harry Kim, I guess. So
it's all pretty dumb. I guess the first place to really start, if there's any kind of discussion to have about this episode, it's like the Kazon. This is probably the first Kazon episode that I felt that they were trying to do something with them. So I guess the behind the scenes, the goal here for the Kazon was that they were supposed to represent 90s gang culture, like in LA, that kind of thing. So, but what's funny about this is that Voyager is apparently the most 90 of all the shows, right? Because it's got a villain that's based on like 90s gang culture. It has like New World mysticism in Chakotay and stuff like that. It's I never realized this one seems the most of its era. Like everything that they want to talk about is like late or mid to late 90s type like pop culture stuff. But the Kazon are supposed to be gang culture in that they are a whole bunch of basically the same thing fighting each other for territory all the time.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And it's also supposed to, the other thing, just to finish it off, is that it's supposed to be a very youth-oriented culture, like how gangs are, because so it's like no Kazon are supposed to be long-lived because they kill each other and everything like that, and they're supposed to have like a very immature outlook on life, which is what the focus here is. Apparently they had production troubles using kid actors for them the way that they wanted to, so a lot of them are just played by adults, which kind of undermines the whole thing. But I mean, ultimately all they do is they come across as like shitty Klingons, really.
Yes, yeah. This is the first one where they've really felt like they're just Klingons with a run through the. They look like Klingons after the focus group said we want them to look more hip. So
they have like great T-shirts in the final.
Yeah,
scene.
They've got like tight T-shirts and like troll hair, like troll doll hair, and like big baggy hammer pants and stuff. It's like these are the Klingons for the 90s. How old is Nog, the actor? At this point?
He's 26. I'm guessing.
Yeah. I was going to say so because there's one shot of him when they're in the jail cell or whatever. He looks like a fucking superhero. He is ripped. They're talking about him like they bring in all these other children and they're like, look at this child who is one of you. And I'm like, no, that guy.
You could bench press these kids. Yeah.
That guy fucks.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're shitty Klingons. We agree on that. The thing that's really frustrating about them, right, is that they're trying to sort of set them up as a new race, but they're just shitty Klingons. So what it does narratively in terms of the franchise is that it reverts us back to square one with the Klingons.
Yeah.
You don't have like the growth that they had through TOS and the movies and then TNG and DS9 and everything like that. It's just back to this boring honor culture stuff where they have not remembered, because they're a different species, they haven't remembered any of the lessons or things we've learned about the Klingons and how they've grown as like a franchise, like a part of the franchise. And that's really frustrating. It's really just a reversion back to this boring honor culture. Like, you didn't let me have my honor and now everyone wants to kill me and life isn't worth living, and it's really not interesting anymore.
Yeah, I would not have I don't think I would have picked up on the 90s-ness of it all if you hadn't said it, but now that you said it, I kind of wish that they had gone further. I mean, it does make sense. Janeway does seem like the one Starfleet captain who owns the Pure Mood CD and listens to it often. But like the fact that the Kazon are supposed to be like the Crips and the Bloods is hilarious to me.
Yep.
But yeah, I wish they could have found something more interesting to do with them, because it's just really taking away. Like, it really felt like it was bare bones Klingon stuff, because they don't even like talk really well.
They don't have a voice, you mean? They don't have it like the Klingons have a Shakespearean way of talking to them.
Yeah,
the
Kazon, they kind of like have a bad impression of that, while also not really having a great vocabulary.
They sound stupid. So, yeah, I think they're supposed to be stupid, right?
Yeah, they sound kind of dumb, which, now that I know what it's based on, feels a little racist to me.
They speak like the urban youth.
Yeah, little racist. I hope does nobody refer to the Kazon as super predators in this show, do they?
No.
Oh, well, that's good. But yeah, there's nothing. I don't find anything interesting about them at this point.
Yeah.
Because they are just Klingon light right now.
Well, it was a failure to like. I can be down with this idea of like gangland territory control, like a sort of like outlaw, living outside of society in like their own little societies where they're fighting for each other. But, they don't have like there's no like game to it. They're not,
right.
There's no drug aspect. There's no sort of like money-making enterprise. They're this weird thing where they're always constantly looking for resources, but their ships are huge and stuff like that. Like,
right.
I don't understand why Voyager has run into numerous planets on its path home where it seems like there's a whole bunch of materials for people, and the Kazon constantly are like, we don't have supplies, we need to steal stuff from each other and things like that. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So like if you don't follow through on any of the things that make gangs actually work, or like how the economics or like culture of a gang society would work, then you just have Klingons who are fighting about honor culture stuff, and it's not interesting. I think they could have done something with the gangs and it would have been okay, but it definitely screams 90s to me.
Yeah, it feels like Kazon hip hop is more parents just don't understand,
right?
And less the chronic.
The Kazon should just speak with that weird era of rap where they had not mastered rhyming over the bar. So every lyric would just go biddle bop bop, biddle biddle bop bop, biddle biddle bop bop. They should really.
My name is Nog, and I'm here to say, I'm gonna shoot you in a phaser way.
They don't have that. Maybe Nas or something. They need to have Nas-esque Kazon who come in and teach them how to do things like that. I don't have much else about the Kazon, really, unfortunately. Nog is fine as them. I find it kind of tedious. The other aspect to this is Chakotay.
Nog, I think he's fine at what he does, but he's really got one speed, huh? This is basically
it depends on makeup. He relies on makeup quite a bit. Yeah. Not to speak ill of the dead, but
this felt like early days Nog before Nog got like more civilized. I guess maybe that's the wrong word to use, but
for a nice middle class family took him in off the street.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean, though. Like when he was more hardcore Ferengi, he had the same kind of like level of anger and saying human a lot more and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's sort of the same speed as Nog.
Yeah. Yep. He's and this would have been early DS9 too. So is what it is. The other aspect of this is Chakotay. We get more Native American jibber jabber from him that I don't really understand how it ties in.
I don't mind this stuff that they do here as much as I've minded some of the other stuff. Well, except for the fact that he's like, I'm here to pray with my father's favorite radio, I guess.
Yep.
Whatever he's carrying.
As he's getting attacked, he has to pack all that shit up, and it takes him about 30 seconds of screen time to fold the blanket over on it and stuff like that.
Like, this stuff at least feels... The word isn't authentic, but like it feels more in line with a character, I would say. But when he's like, anytime he's like, there's an ancient Native American saying about any horse that can't make it up a slick hill must then come down the other side covered in red paint. And it's like, what? That's the stuff that feels like, all right, they hired somebody to start slinging bullshit. At least with this stuff, there's a little bit of character stuff built into it where he's trying to talk to his dad and stuff. That doesn't bother me that much.
Well, I just thought it was weird that, like, I guess I don't really care about his... I never find that his Native American stuff really adds anything to anything, as you were saying.
No, it's not super convincing either.
No, and the weird thing about this one is that it seems much more appropriate that he should be talking about having rejoined Starfleet and having left the Maquis, as he found his own initiations into Starfleet at this point, like in the way that Nog is trying to find his way into his Kazon culture.
He doesn't
bring it up.
He doesn't make that comparison. He's just like, you know what I had to do to get in the Federation? I had to study real hard. I had to read so many books. I bet you can't even read.
They gave him a uniform in the pilot, and they're like, now you remember Starfleet again. And it's like, God.
Nog kind of calls him on. He's like, I bet you didn't even have to do anything for that. And it's like, well, I mean, technically no, but
that's just weird. I guess behind the scenes, the production of season 2 was kind of a shit show for most of it. So
really?
There's going to be this is the first episode that was written in season 2. So the next 3 are all going to be holdovers from season 1, like the first one was.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So this is the first season 2 episode, and then we're going to have a couple different ones.
I'll be honest with you. Now that I know that this is a more 90s focused on purpose Star Trek, I think that Chakotay stuff is going to go down a lot easier for me because I'm just going to imagine that he's just like a yoga teacher from Southern California.
Yeah, that's what he sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just really into crystals and stuff.
Yes.
That's fine with me.
He keeps stealing the dilithium crystal. The Voyager keeps stalling out as he's like, I got to get that thing out of there and rub them together or whatever. I mean, that's
the
what
great philosopher Enya once said.
It feels like the writers setting them up were just kind of grabbing stuff that was in the headlines with no. There's like, it's so of the era that they decide that they don't really need to explain any of this. Like it's kind of so prominent in the real world that you don't need to explain why this guy is like a new world mystic and stuff like that, and why the Kazon gang culture is supposed to be that kind of representative thing. It feels like the show almost thinks it's so obvious it doesn't need to explain it to you, not even in a sci-fi way, to make it seem like it belongs to this universe.
I'm kind of glad they don't, honestly. Like well, with the Kazon, I don't find the gang culture analogy to be very strong for all the reasons that you said, where there's no angle to it. Like there's not even a second group. Like I feel like if you really wanted to get into that, this episode would have a second warring faction of the Kazon or whoever they're up against.
They're the ones that we've met in previous episodes, to be clear.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
but
they all look the same and they all dress the same and stuff like that.
Yeah, I never in a million years would have figured that out.
Yeah.
because they've never been on the screen at the same time.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're going to do that, do it and actually show it and not just have people talk about, you're entering Kazon B space.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. You think that the villains of a series would be the main antagonists that they consider them to be at this point would have been fleshed out a little bit more leading into this kind of a thing. But they're not. They don't have an interesting angle to them. The Chakotay. Yeah, I mean, what undoes the entire second half of the episode for me is that Chakotay does not have anything interesting to talk about with Nog because they decided that they don't want to talk about him rejoining Starfleet and that being his like guiding principle at that point, like having something to talk about with this kid, because it's just these long scenes of like one of them is awake while the other one's sleeping in the cave and they're creeping around each other and then they have a conversation about it and it's like this is real boring.
Closest they get when Chakotay's like, "Why didn't you kill me?" and Nog goes, "I didn't really feel like it."
Yeah. It's good. It's good character work.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing else really to say about it. It's they have giant Kazon ships. I guess there's the action sequence with the shuttle. It's another one that I think it might be one of those plot things you were talking about earlier. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So this is the first in like TV show, I think, where the shuttle is flown like a fighter jet, where it goes upside down and Chakotay is upside down, and then
sure.
I don't really understand this battle sequence where the Kazon attack cruiser attacks a shuttle with torpedoes and it's fine, and then he shoots with a phaser and destroys it somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't understand that at all. I didn't know if the idea is that the Federation is so much more advanced than the Kazon that a
shuttle can do that?
Shuttlecraft can take out their engines.
Yeah.
I mean, I also did not get the sense of scale of Nog's ship. Like, I don't know if it was a comparable size and maybe that's why or something.
Yeah, it seems shuttle sized. It seems small. It wasn't like the mothership that they fly to later.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe there's something lost in translation there too.
Yeah. Other moments with other characters, Tom Paris gets scolded a lot in this episode. The doctor has a funny scene where he tells everyone to beam all that shit out of his sick bay because they beamed in the. I don't even know if they think it's funny anymore because they do it so frequently. I find the crew in the conference room when they talk via Zoom to the doctor to be extremely funny for some reason because he can't join them, but they're all very seriously looking at the screen and Janeway's like, "I'll get right on that, doctor," as he's having some sort of weird comic moment there. But I find it very funny that they talk to him that way.
Well, it's also because they treat him like shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, they're still not treating him like he's a person.
Yeah, so he's got a room full of crap. He's like, "Could somebody please get rid of this?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Boop.
Yeah. Paris and Harry Kim hang out and talk to Chakotay on the radio. That's pretty much it. We'll just go to patron thoughts. I think the patrons might have more to say about this one. I really don't have anything to say about this episode. Patreon.com/The Pensky File. If you guys want to support us, if you're interested in 20 minutes of discussion about a terrible episode of Voyager, boy, did we fulfill that promise. You can support us at patreon.com/The Pensky File. It's the best way to do it.
I did think that the ending, that stuff on the planet. I'm sorry, I'm just stalling for time at this point. Where they met up on the planet seemed like a weird double cross that needed another pass or something.
I don't understand what was going on there. Why I don't know.
They were trying to convince Janeway that they were on their side.
Right.
And that's
just to find them?
Just to find them, I guess.
Okay.
That's all.
I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, patreon.com/The Pensky File. As always, our Captain Tier supporters get a special thank you. Special thank you goes to Ben Douglas, Tark Latif, Andrew Cherlog, Joint Mango, Christian Pouch, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Matthew Russ, Michael Pond, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergey, Sean, Bradley Howells, Bradley Killens, Vault 13 Hero, Dwayne Hacker, Kevin Reyes, Jordan Cooper, Russell Elledge, Stefan Minton, HH28, Darth Moss, Derek Zajac, Paulo Roscoe, Jig123, Patrick Seba, Dave Davies, Poindexter G, Barry Wallace, Jamie Crow, Captain Brazen, Eric Sanchuan, Jake Keys Gamer, William Scheisler, Rayhan Jaffer, Nick the Rat, Zane Majors, Olivier Pardue, Grappler John Zorn, Tom Hickey, Captain Munchausen, James McLennan, Tommy Tango, Jonas Tuvix Must Die, Dizbrada, Edmond Nakamura, Clef, Edmark Starr, Chris McLaughlin. Next page, Royo, Jeremy Boudreau, J-Man, Alec DeWolf, The Undiscovered Mugato, Robbie Duffield, Will Clay, Atanga Udom, Artorius, Daniel Adam, Azalin Maru, Jaron Hatch, and John Ailman. Thanks, everybody, for supporting the show. Now we'll go to Patreon comments. Hopefully you guys can fill in the rest of the show for us here. Initiations. That's
how we do it.
There's only a few comments.
We get them to pay. It's like the self-service checkout line at the store. We get them to pay for it and do the work for us.
Taxel Bear says, initiations, what's worse than a Kazon? That's right, a Kazon played by a child. Even ignoring this, it's just more store-brand Klingons with a touch of Chakotay's Native American spirit magic. Clef says...
What a sucker paying to listen to this thing. He's
Clef says...
Fill it in the rest of the show.
Initiations, Chakotay adopts a young man by not killing him when he can. They both help each other when they end almost like brothers, and Akuchimoya deserves a trash can. 2 fraudulent Native American consultants out of 5. Kyle Barrett with a incredibly long comment says, a boring stock story that could have been improved by having Chakotay go on a character journey that mirrors Kazon Nogs. If the episode dealt with Chakotay feeling like this encounter truly initiated him into Starfleet after his time as a Maquis, then it may have been worth telling, but this show doesn't even mention his Maquis past. He's always been the consummate Starfleet officer, apparently, and the episode instead tried to lamely tie in his Native American heritage, like all Chakotay episodes do, ignoring the other potentially interesting parts of his character. As for the Kazon, we learn they're nothing but wanky Klingons, and I'd argue the Suliban are better antagonists. What say you, Clay? Kazon or Suliban? Suliban are more original. I will give you that.
Suliban at least have like an ethos.
Thing. Yeah, a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, a thing they're going after, kind of. As muddled as it can be, with the
temporal Cold War
time stuff. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, the thing about this episode that stood out to me the most is like it was the starkest proof that they are done with, for the most part, with any of the Maquis stuff, is when he was like, I love the Federation. I've always loved the Federation. I always will love the Federation. It's like, okay, well, I guess that's over.
Yep. Yeah, the guy who has an affair, just laying it on too thick for his wife at that point, just trying to convince her of something. It's weird. It was the only interesting thing. That's Chakotay's thing, and it's just, if he doesn't have that, he doesn't really, like, is this episode better suited to anyone other than Chakotay, really? Trying to find your way. Like, Tom Paris is comparable, I guess. He could be one who could do it. I think he's the only one, really.
Yeah.
Maybe Neelix.
Probably.
But Neelix has a sequence here where he's actually important for some reason. Because he calls out the Kazon for having their training planet, and he's like, you're not going to fire on us because then you'll let everyone know that you have a training planet here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's fine, I guess. I mean, he they kind of have like a little bit of a plot with him where he's sad that he didn't get brought to the training exercise.
Yeah, well, he's trying to prove himself.
Yeah.
Like he's doing the Nog thing of trying to prove himself. It's super. The intro with Janeway is kind of comical, and then his ability to stand up to this Kazon warship seems unrealistic at the time, Yeah. Cow continues by saying, an extra point for Janeway snapping at Paris for speculating, only to then speculate herself about everything for the rest of the episode. 2 realizations by the writer that the Kazon not having transporters makes a convincing escape from their ship very difficult to write, out of 5.
Yes.
It reminded me of that big Kazon ship, reminded me of Star Wars with the scale there, where you don't see many 90s Trek shows where the small ship is flying away from the big one so dramatically.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Changeling says, this episode feels like the writer was given notes by a producer that had the exact wrong idea of how the show should be. The audience loves Neelix. Put him on the bridge and make him more important to the story. Chakotay's a Native American and a Maquis. Make him say you can't own land. Also, I like Eisenberg as Nog, but he's awful in this. God awful. 1 rock, feather, and gold walkie-talkie to speak with the dead out of 5.
That did kind of come up out of nowhere. I don't even remember what the lead-in line was, but when he's like, "I don't believe you can own land," I was like, that's just, boy.
For some reason, there's a channel that's been like fed into my YouTube algorithm feed where it's this guy who does these very short, they're like 10-second videos, but they're all kind of making fun of video essays on YouTube, and so it'll be like an empty chair. And he'll come in and he sits in the chair and sort of deeply sighs, and then he like pours himself a glass of whiskey and takes a sip, and then just goes, capitalism, and that's the end of the video. It reminded me of Chakotay talking about the land there. It felt like he was going to get into something, but he didn't. Latte Librarian says, with all the father ritual stuff going on, it seems like the show is saying Chakotay would be a good dad, but alas, Murder Nog is more interested in battle. 2 uniforms out of 5. Norman Buchwald says, I don't know what's worse, the attempted LA street gang nature of the Kazon, which fell with a thud, or Chakotay's culture defined by a pseudo-Native American consultant called Highwater. Crossover Star Trek actor Aaron Eisenberg unfortunately could not save this one of the first Chakotay shuttle losses out of 5.
Man, I feel like an idiot now. Am I the only person that didn't know this?
I only knew it from reading.
Gang culture thing?
Yeah, about it. I wouldn't have picked up on it, because they're just so Klingon-y. But, yeah. Because what's the most the gangy aspect is them fighting each other, I guess. That's the only thing that really defines, and you don't even see it in this episode.
Right. That's the thing. Is like you don't see any of that stuff, so it's tough to track that if that's what's going on.
Yeah. They really, I mean, sounds like you don't like the gang idea at all. Would it be improved with something like involving drugs in it, like some kind of economic thing that they're?
I just don't think it's clear is the only thing. Like okay. What was this, 17, 18 episodes we've watched so far?
Yes.
If you asked me a question about what are the Kazon doing, the answer I give you would not be warring amongst themselves like gang territories. I would not have told you that in a million years.
Yeah, they seem just like kind of Klingon-y space pirates at this point. Like you just don't want to run into them, really, but they don't have anything other than that going on. It is weird with that being the point that they have not had Kazon interactions on screen.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's strange. Norman we read Norman's comment. Thank you very much, Norman. Next comment. Point X to G. Since we're never going to be able to see any more Aaron Eisenberg, everyone is spelling his name with 2 A's. Maybe I'm wrong about how his name is spelled. I'm happy to have this episode see him here. Chakotay does get a much needed focus episode, but I can't say that it does much to flesh him out. This episode and the Kazon are both fine, but kind of forgettable. Aaron Million, who is correctly spelled with 2 A's, says a fairly bland Chakotay episode in that it doesn't dig into his personality, instead superficially focusing on his heritage. Also, shouldn't people know by now that a single person taking a shuttlecraft always leads to trouble for that person? 2 destroyed shuttles out of 5. Benjamin Espinosa, is it me or these season 2 episodes seem like major step back from season 1? Even the video transfer is so bad on Paramount Plus. It's almost like these were season 1 that didn't make it due to poor quality. It was nice seeing Aaron Eisenberg again, Nog, rest in peace. But this episode confirmed the consensus that the Kazon suck. Ugly and uninspired. Not a lot happening here aside from a road trip to Vasquez Rocks, California again. 1 out of 5.
I did notice that as well. It did have the that weird striping thing that I was complaining about just a little bit, but it was it didn't look great
in like the space scenes with the ships.
I actually noticed it the most in one of the shuttlecraft scenes.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember which one, but it was just sort of like window shading.
That's
down
weird.
The screen, yeah.
I don't notice it, but then when you mentioned it in the pilot, I went back and watched it. I was like, oh, I definitely notice it now. I wonder if I'm just wasn't paying attention to it. Brendan Howell says, so bad I'm not even going to bother to rewatch this one. Even in Kazon makeup, Aaron Eisenberg still sounds like Nog. And if the Kazon are so bloody factious, why haven't they done us all a favor and killed each other already? Fuck Jamak, I guess that's Jamak Highwater. I guess he must be the consultant. And his supposed Native American bullshit. Half of Vasquez Rock out of 5. Grapple John Zorn says, did you know that Kazon hair is made with those dried pig ears you can find at the pet store? Also, wasn't Chakotay handed his uniform in the last 5 minutes of the pilot? 2 kill me's out of 5. Jaron Hatch says, pretty standard, mediocre 90s Trek fare. Aaron Eisenberg is sorely underutilized as Carr, and his character really showcases the quality difference between DS9 and Voyager's writing. It's also a shame that the show focuses on Chakotay's questionable Native American heritage rather than his time with the Maquis. Having him deal with the notoriously factional Kazon could have been fertile ground for exploring his own factionalist background. 2 Akuchi Moyas out of 5. I keep mispronouncing that, but Jaron has nailed that more there. That the Maquis being so like an offshoot of the Federation is a way that the Kazon can kind of be explained too. But
yeah.
Matt Ross says, how did Nog get to the Delta Quadrant? Oh, right, it's not him, but an attempt to explain the space hicks of the Kazon, and doesn't really. The oddest part out of this is giving Chakotay a shuttle for his own personal trip. He could have done the ritual in his quarters, just bring in the do not disturb sign. A weird after-school message if being confident and be your own person, all while learning to be a vicious space pirate. 2 out of 5. Eric McGowan says, initiations, all this episode does is prove how weak the writing for Kazon is. The Kazon is. Their culture comes across as Klingon light, but dumber and less technologically advanced. Not a great adversary for Voyager to keep running into. 2 more. Jonas says, I'm not gonna lie to you. Apparently, Eisenberg said that the following about his character Carr. It was the other extreme of Nog. I wasn't worried at all about having Nog come out because I knew Nog's character. I knew all of his idiosyncrasies. This is a completely different character. Really, bro? Was Carr not just Nog in a Kazon suit? The story is a version of TNG's The Enemy when Geordi and the Romulan get stranded on a stormy planet and have to cooperate despite hostilities. Kazon, very Oompa Loompa in this episode. 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Last comment. Christian Pouch says, the real potential for the Kazon was their setup as sects with wildly varying traditions and beliefs and loyalties spread in a great diaspora over a vast area of space with the opportunity to write interesting stories about identity and cycles of violence. This is the direct opposite of the many homogenous monocultures we've seen in Star Trek. People make overdone jokes about their hair all the time. Hard to disagree. It's actually a good distinct feature. But the real problem is that they never took advantage of this setup, and all we get are thugs. This is the best exploration of Kazon culture we're going to get, and it's a solid, if not great, episode. Thanks, everybody, for leaving your thoughts about this episode, which was very boring. So, Clay, what do you want to give this one initiations?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah. Definition of a 2, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Not much else to say about it. Sad that Eisenberg was in it and not particularly great, although Nog is not really one of my favorite characters on DS9, and Eisenberg isn't one of my favorite performers. So I guess maybe I'm just... it's interesting to see someone from DS9 in any context. But outside of that, the Kazon are boring. The only sequence I kind of liked in this one... You know what I did like, actually? There's one bright spot in this. I liked it when Chakotay and Nog were on the Kazon big ship, right? And I liked that set. I liked the way that was directed with their the conversations. And I actually think that the lead Kazon was pretty good at what he was.
Yeah. I didn't mind him because I thought the other guy was not great. So like when they first get back to the ship, I felt like the second in command guy was a little bit lacking, and he was a little bit more grunty and boring.
Yeah.
But the leader seemed like he was a little bit more interesting.
He had good energy. He seemed kind of threatening to me in a way that the other Kazon didn't. So I applaud his effort. That's it. We both give it 2s for initiations. That's it with the second episode of Voyager. Thanks, everybody. Patreon.com/The Pensky File is the best way to support the show. Go there. Patreon.com/The Pensky File. And a couple $1 a month, you get extra stuff. We're covering all the Strange New Worlds right now. We covered Star Trek Picard Season 2. That guy who complains about everything on Twitter is raving about Season 3 of Picard, so we'll see where that goes. But I don't know. We'll see. Do you have anything you want to say, Clay, before we sign off? This is a short episode, but... that is what it is.
Thanks for listening to Rotten Horror Picture Show and Badass. Amanda and I are still making our way through the second string of Stephen King on Patreon. In June, we did Christine, John Carpenter movie, which is one of the few John Carpenter movies I haven't seen, so I was excited to watch that. And I just realized I need to upload that and give it to you.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Yep. Great Dolly Parton song, too. Christine.
I'm begging you, please don't run over my boyfriend and kill him. My comic book that I wrote with Sean, the White Knight Presents Red Hood Batman comic book, comes out next month or this month. I don't know when this is coming out, but if it's July, it comes out this month. Yep. I think towards the end of July. I think maybe the last week of July, if I had to guess. But yeah, keep your eyes open for that. If you want to help support the show, pick one up. It would be very helpful to me. That would be great. Thank you. It
was inspired by the current situation in Chicago, right, with the gang violence there.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. It's
Voyager didn't do it, but we're going to get this. We're going to accomplish the mission right now.
It is a timely allegory about gang violence in Chicago and the importance of using lavender-based facial scrubs.
Main character's got a nice tight cut-off T-shirt on him, ready to go.
He goes to yoga every day, and he's got some interesting opinions about vaccines.
Guys, check out that book. Check out all the other shows. I guess we're done with this one. Initiations. We'll be back with the next episode, which is projections, which is it? Maybe it's not. I don't want to say. We'll wait. Projections is supposed to be good. I don't know if it's the next episode, though. It's coming up. Anyway, thanks very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. We will be back next week. See you later.